Hey there, welcome to Negative Balance. My name's Jamar and I'm today's host. We're in the Business and Society Student Association office. It's in VC 111. And today we're going to be talking about the issues happening in the business world as well as what's happening in society today. We're going to look at the balance. As you know, being a part of the economy, yourself as a Canadian, there isn't a very good balance right now. Right now in our market society, there's a lot of prevalence placed on capitalism. So I feel like we're starting to suffer a little bit as people, not just a little bit, quite a lot actually. So we're going to be taking a more in-depth look about the issues, what we can do to address them, and how we can make a change as students and beyond. Today I'm with
My name is Tamara, and I'm first year exec for Business and Society.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the president of the Business and Society Student Association.
And I'm Christian. I'm the vice president of external affairs.
today's first topic. We're going to talk about sexual workplace harassment and rape culture. I feel like there's a lot of leniency in today's society towards how we're treating women, how we're allowing women to be treated. So let's go into this, guys. Let's talk about personal experiences related to sexual or even workplace harassment. Have you ever come across anyone? This could happen to guys and women. Someone being inappropriate based on your gender.
Well, I do remember when I was working as a server, and this is kind of the opposite because this actually happened to two males that I worked with, and they were servers, and they were giving entrees and stuff, and they were 20-something-year-old, and all of a sudden this like drunk 40-year-old woman started like dancing around them. They couldn't be doing their job because she was just in their face saying like, "Oh, come dance with me." And at one point, she actually smacked their ass.
Wow.
And yeah, and like, I feel like it's a little harder for men when they come out to like talk about it because it's kind of underrated because how can a man be sexually
Victimized.
harassed? Yes, they're victimized.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one story that I've come across.
Okay.
I'd agree as well. I definitely work in retail, so for a lot of my job, it does take interacting with a lot of people that you don't know on a daily basis, up to like hundreds to thousands of people on any given time. I do find that majority of the people in my line of work are mostly females, or a lot of males are the minority, and you do find that a lot of the time there are comments made about somebody's appearance. I've actually had coworkers that are females be smacked on the butt by customers
Wow.
as they're like walking through the store, and it was like something where they were in so much shock that it had happened that they like addressed it as it was happening, but it wasn't something that maybe the manager could maybe deal with or say anything about because it's a customer and you can't really like, you know what I mean? It's that whole culture of the customer's always right, or it's okay if it's not somebody in your immediate workplace area. But it is something that you do experience a lot in like just general society that I do find is very normalized and like becomes okay.
How would you guys describe sexual harassment? So there's definitely the physical aspect where if someone's placing their hand on you inappropriately, then that's a red flag. But sometimes it's more discreet. There's more coverts. Even if you look at like technology coming into the factor, if they have an expression where you're hollering or you're sliding in the DMs, that seems to be like popular, but that is actually kind of infringing on privacy. That is kind of classified as harassment too. What's your take on that?
Definitely, like it comes, especially now with the internet, like Dushi just said, like there, it comes in different forms, right? And especially like with comments on the internet, and sometimes it kind of meshes with cyberbullying, but that's a different topic. And it's kind of known as thirst, right? And I think we've normalized it to a certain degree with the internet, and we forget that it translates in the real world, especially now where technology use is like heavily seen, right?
Right.
Especially with kids, so it starts at a younger age.
Yeah, it's adopted earlier on. You have
Exactly.
iPads in babies' hands.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and if you have like a kid who hasn't formed a real social like perspective, like that's strong, like that's gonna last for like years, it affects them not just like at the moment, but like long term, right? And so I think it's a very sensitive issue that needs to be addressed.
All right.
I'd agree. I think the one thing to always separate is maybe somebody when you're talking about online dating or online relationships and it being harassment. I think there's a difference between maybe networking and making friends online or using the technology to your advantage versus something where it's along the lines of stalking or like unwanted attention that the person's not unprecedented, like something that nobody is asking for per se. You know what I mean? So I definitely believe that we're in a technological stage in society where it's normal to maybe meet or interact with people online. It's just maybe crossing that border or making somebody feel uncomfortable.
But how can you tell? Because if it's unsolicited, if someone's starting a conversation with you and they're the first to make the first move, of course, but you didn't ask for that, it's unwanted attention. It could be unwanted attention or easily accepted as well. So how do you really define whether that's appropriate or not?
But I think that comes along with your initial response to that person. If you maybe they're messaging you and you say, honestly, you're very nice, or I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm not interested, or like I'm not interested in making friends, like there's no necessary, it's not necessary for us to connect on that level, then I understand. But to an extent, and I'm not definitely not saying it's a majority, but a lot of people do use social media to put themselves out there or to interact with people and meet people. So in that perspective, you are going to come across people that are also trying to connect with people or network with people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. It could be professionally. It could be like you have a skill trait that they want to learn, mentorship. Like there's so many opportunities. It's not always necessarily like sexual or a relationship that people are pursuing, but it's just this like standing your ground and knowing where you stand, right, in my opinion.
I think it's kind of coming to a point where it's kind of hard because the lines are a little bit blurred. So I think there's becoming more of an issue where people are becoming desensitized because there's a lot of red flags that are being thrown out there that aren't necessarily true.
Also, a point with what Tamara said is how you can know when it's unwanted is also when someone doesn't respond to you, right? So I guess the term nowadays is ghosting, right? So when someone like sends you a message on social media or talks to you in person and they don't reply, it's because they don't want to reply, and you shouldn't like keep on going and harassing, because that's when I feel like that's when the line's been crossed, when you keep on talking. And I've been in a, not personally, but I've seen a situation where someone had headphones on, and this is something that girls will do, maybe guys too, where they'll put headphones on, they won't even be listening to something just because they don't want anyone to talk to them. And so this man was trying to get this girl's attention, and he took out one of her earphones because she wasn't responding to him. And yeah.
Wow.
That's inappropriate. That's like a clear violation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you're going into their space. You're like,
absolutely. That is definitely crossing a barrier, you know what I mean? Even after you block somebody or use precautions in avoiding a certain person.
You ever see one of those memes where the person gets ghosted and then they keep saying, hey, you're just going to be like that then? Or, you know, they just keep being persistent and thinking it's funny. And then they just get the screenshot and like the girl just exposes them like this guy's being a total jerk. But like there is a lot of instances where people feel like if you're being tenacious, you know, maybe there's like if you don't succeed on the first try again. There's that aspect of it. There's definitely an inappropriateness there, but there's also the maybe I just need to make myself a bit different. Maybe I can cut through by being extra. What do you think about that?
See, I can definitely see like what you mean, because there's this myth that like if a girl says no, that she's probably playing hard to get, right? And this goes back to like the social cues thing. Like I think most the issue, the underlying issue is that the people that come that sexually harass others comes with the idea that they're entitled to, and they don't understand that no means no.
Right.
So like it's not a blurry like it's black and white, right? Or it's yes or no, really. So then like there needs to be a very emphasis on consent and let the person define it, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
I just also wanted to say that the slogan used to be no means no, and now it's yes means yes, because saying no isn't the only way that you are not giving consent. You know, maybe still means no. I don't know still means no. You know, a clear, direct yes is the only consent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's better.
I believe definitely along what you're saying is that a lot of people don't acknowledge coercion as a factor of no, and that is a really big issue. And I feel like a lot of people still don't talk about it even now when in the discussions with rape culture, because I believe like when you're being coerced, you are unsure about something and you express that you're unsure about something, and you're led to believe, or you're made to feel like you're in a comfortable situation where you're okay, when in reality like it's maybe something that you shouldn't be in, or
Right.
that you are convinced you're okay in, and then you realize afterwards that it's maybe something that you didn't want to do. So coercion is a big part of that as well.
Yeah.
And in the business perspective of that, it's also a bit difficult because when you're in a sales line, you're being taught, you're literally given the tools to actually hear a no and make a second approach. You're being told that the no isn't really a hard no, it's a soft no, and to keep going. So, you might translate that into your relationships outside of the workplace as well. So it's kind of unfortunate as well. You have to use your discretion, you have to use your common sense, and you have to be smart enough. You have to have the wherewithal, of course, to know, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Speaking of knowing right and wrong, there was an instance in the media recently where artist Chance the Rapper, he had a little situation with this other guy on Twitter, and he was making light of whether men should even bother hugging women anymore. Because with all the allegations, of course, of sexual harassment, where's the fine line? How do we approach women? How do we accept women? How can we embrace women? And when's too much? So let's take a look at that for a moment. So, how do you guys feel about the Chance the Rapper tweet? Do you think he took it too far? Did he make an example out of the guy, or was he justified?
I think that sarcasm. You could tell there was a hint of sarcasm, and sarcasm is not the right way to teach or like to. It's very dismissive as far as like topics like this, very sensitive, where you want to educate people for better, not just shut them off or shun them out of society, because that's how these type of like that's they become stronger, right? Because they're considered society's rejects rather than it should be more inclusive, and they should feel more comfortable to want to learn,
Right.
right? So I think that was it's for the it's good entertainment, but it's as over a long term it's just bad.
Not effective.
Yeah,
as
not effective.
Okay. Well, we do have more examples as well. So there has been instances where we have in the media world, of course, you have directors, not directors actually, executives rather, such as Harvey Weinstein. He's been a major figure in the public speaking about sexual harassment. There's instances where I think there's a couple of allegations where numerous women have claimed that he's harassed them sexually. Kevin Spacey is another example.
With actors like Kevin Spacey and the people who are high up in the media industry, is the idea of coercion in within like the entertainment and people who want to make it to where they are, and how those are instances of workplace and sexual harassment and just sexual harassment as a whole for a lot of people that often isn't talked about because of like maybe promises, or maybe people thinking that it was okay at the time, or something that maybe should have happened for them to reach where they are now. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of cases in that with men and women in both, men on men or women with women or vice versa. It's not just heterosexual cases of sexual harassment in the entertainment industry as well.
Okay. So how do you think we can combat that from a business point of view? How do you think that we can fight against sexual harassment?
Well, I know that what happened with both Kevin Spacey and Harvey Weinstein was that they were both terminated. So Kevin Spacey is no longer in the Netflix show House of Cards. And also Harvey Weinstein was also fired as a producer. So I feel like in one instance that's the employer kind of like trying to shift the blame, also trying to like, we don't want, and also
protecting image, right?
Yeah, protecting the image. But it's also good because it shows that they're on like the women's side and that they believe them, which is, as you know, in rape culture, very important for you to believe the victim.
Yeah.
Okay.
The company would have low tolerance, I feel like, for especially people in those points of position, position of power in the industry as well.
Okay. Speaking of positions of power, you are a BUSO student yourself. Can you tell us your stream and how this relates to what you're learning in course in your classes?
Well, as far as like intermediate BUSO, we're right now touching on ethics and corporate ethics. Also, one thing we talk about and how there we see a majority of the CEOs being men rather than women, and the question is we really want, and also it touches on equal pay, right? And it's really how we regard women in society, and I think that's where it all comes from, how we interact them on, and not just business wise, because it all starts from as kids or like just society, because that's how it translates, that's how it gets there. It's like you
Institutionalized.
exactly it becomes a boys club because boys club were that's what they were hanging out with in high school too. It was a
Right.
boys club because they've been very exclusive or very they've treated women very demeaningly because of that,
Right.
and it goes up because they want to promote their buddy
Right.
just so like they're comfortable. So one thing we learn is really how so really it's we should attack this issue at the root, which is basically how you have more conversations, whether it's with your mother, with your sisters, and try to and I think the more humane and the more we see women or see other men as individuals, as like actual humans, rather than objectify them in any way, the more we'd be better as a society. That's my point.
Well, very good. I'm happy that you guys were here to talk about this issue with us. That's going to
Thank you for
conclude.
having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. That's going to conclude our very first episode of Negative Balance. Stay tuned for more information about the next episode, and we'll see you next week, same time, same room. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.